The desert wasn't cruel that morning. Not yet. The sun had only just climbed high enough to brush the canyon walls in gold, turning the redstone to honey and the sky to endless blue. A river cut through the cliffs below, silver and calm, winding like it had all the time in the world. Luke Barrett rode slow along the edge, hat tilted back, reins loose in his hand. He wasn't running from anyone today. For once, the world seemed quiet enough to believe in peace. His horse's hooves clopped steady over the rock, the sound echoing soft. A hawk wheeled overhead. He'd been on the trail 3 days straight, chasing work, chasing luck, chasing something he couldn't quite name. The desert gave nothing easy, but it had its ways of keeping a man company. Down below, the river caught his eye again. He saw something move near the bank. Quick, a flash of motion, too low to be a deer. He slowed the horse, squinting. The morning light shimmered on the water, but there it was again, movement, then a splash. Luke frowned, swung off his horse, and made his way down the slope, boots crunching gravel. The air smelled clean, of sagebrush and dust just beginning to warm. When he reached the river's edge, he saw her, an Apache girl, young, maybe 18, kneeling by the water. She was washing her hands, humming softly, her voice carrying like smoke in quiet air. Her long, dark hair caught the sunlight, her dress simple, fringe at the hem. A bow and quiver rested nearby on a flat rock. Luke froze. He knew better than to sneak up on anyone out here, especially an Apache. He raised a hand slowly. "Mornin'," he called out, voice even. She looked up fast, startled but not afraid. Her hand brushed the knife at her belt, but she didn't draw it. Her eyes studied him, cautious, curious. "You're far from town," Luke said. "Didn't mean to spook you." "You did not," she answered. Her English was clear but accented, the words soft and careful. "You walk heavy." He smiled faintly. "Guess I do." The moment hung quiet between them, just the sound of the river and the wind stirring the grass. Then the stillness broke, a low growl from the rocks behind her. Luke's hand went to his gun without thinking. The sound came again, closer now, deep rumbling. The girl's eyes widened. She turned, and there it was, a mountain lion, lean and golden, muscles rippling beneath its hide, tail twitching low. It had been stalking her. Luke didn't think. "Stay still," he said sharply. The lion crouched, its gaze locked on the girl. Luke stepped forward, gun drawn. "Hey!" he shouted, voice hard. "Over here!" The cat's head snapped toward him. Then it sprang. He fired once, missed. The shot echoed through the canyon like thunder. The lion hit him hard, claws raking his arm as they went down in the dirt. He felt hot breath, the weight crushing his chest. He jammed his revolver up, fired again. The beast let out a terrible cry, then went still. Silence fell heavy. The smell of gunpowder mixed with dust and blood. Luke shoved the animal off, chest heaving. The girl was on her feet, bow drawn, arrow notched, but she didn't need to fire. She lowered the bow slowly, eyes wide, face pale. You killed it." He sat up, wincing. "Reckon I did." He looked down at his torn sleeve, blood oozing from the scratches. "Got me good, though." She was beside him in a heartbeat, kneeling, pulling a small pouch from her belt. "Do not move," she ordered quietly. He watched her tear a strip from her dress hem, then press a paste made of crushed leaves and ash against his wound. It stung sharp. "You don't waste time," he muttered. "Mountain lion would not have missed next time," she said. "You were foolish to stand between." He chuckled weakly. "Guess foolishness runs my blood." She tied the cloth around his arm, then looked up at him. "Why help me?" Luke met her eyes, dark, unyielding, but young. Didn't have time to think about it. Seemed the right thing to do. She studied him for a long moment, then nodded once, almost solemnly. "You are brave. Or foolish." "Maybe both," he said. And she smiled faintly for the first time. The air lightened after that, the danger gone, the quiet returning. Luke stood, dusting himself off, the ache in his arm dulling beneath the bandage. "What's your name?" he asked. "Tan," she said. "It means new moon." He tipped his hat. "Luke Barrett. means trouble most days. Tayan gave him a small, knowing look. Then today you found balance. Luke chuckled. Balance, huh? Ain't had much of that lately. She turned toward the canyon, eyes scanning the horizon. Come, my camp is not far. You need rest before you fall. He hesitated. He'd spent years avoiding people, avoiding questions, but the way she said it left no room for pride. All right, he said, lead the way. The sun climbed higher as they walked. Birds darted overhead, the river glittered beside them, and somewhere in the distance, a coyote called. Luke found himself watching her, the quiet grace in her stride, the way she moved like she belonged to the land. He met plenty of women in the frontier, saloon girls, settlers, ranch wives, but none like her. She didn't speak much, and when she did, every word carried weight. They reached a small grove near the canyon mouth, a hidden place, cool and shaded, where a few hides stretched between poles and smoke curled from a small fire pit. "This is your home?" he asked. "For now," she said. "My people moved north last moon. I stayed to gather herbs." "Alone?" She nodded. "The desert does not frighten me." Luke looked around, at the simple beauty of the place, at the peace it seemed to hold, and for the first time in a long while, he felt like the world wasn't pressing down on him. Tayan poured water into a bowl, offered it to him. "Drink." He took it, their fingers brushing for a second. The touch was brief, but something passed through it, gratitude, curiosity, maybe fate itself. He drank, wiped his mouth, and smiled. "I reckon I owe you my arm." She tilted her head. "And I owe you my life." He shook his head. "Don't think like that." But she did. He could see it in her eyes. The quiet determination, the way she studied him like she'd already decided something he hadn't caught up to yet. The light softened through the trees, warm and golden, shadows stretching long. Somewhere behind them, the mountain lion lay still beside the river, a reminder that death had passed close, but not taken them. Luke looked out the horizon, a strange calm settling in his chest. He didn't know it yet, but the moment he met Tayan, the trail he'd been riding alone for years had just found its turn. The cat stepped forward, muscles rippling beneath its coat, tail lashing slow and mean. Jesse's fingers twitched toward his revolver. He'd faced armed men, ambushes, even starvation, but the wild didn't play by man's rules. He cocked the hammer. The sound was too loud in that canyon. The lion sprang. He fired, once, twice. Missed both. The beast slammed into him like a boulder, knocking the gun from his hand. Teeth sank into his arm. Claws tore through his coat. He roared in pain, slashing with his knife, the blade scraping bone. Blood sprayed hot across his face. The air filled with growls and grunts, a savage duet of survival. The lion raked him again, tearing open his shoulder. He shoved upward, knife flashing. The blade sank into fur shallow. Not enough. The animal screamed and came again. Jesse rolled, grit filling his mouth, his chest crushed under its weight. Then an arrow sang, the shaft buried deep in the lion's flank. The beast snarled, whipped around, eyes blazing. Another arrow. This one hit the eye. The lion staggered, collapsed, legs twitching, tail still whipping dust. Jesse pushed himself up, blood running down his face. He saw her then, standing on a ridge of stone, bow drawn, hair dark and wild in the wind, bare feet braced against the rock. An Apache girl, no older than 19. Her face was streaked with ash and paint, her eyes sharp as obsidian. For a moment, neither moved. The canyon held its breath. Jesse tried to speak, but coughed instead. The girl lowered her bow, stepped down the slope, and stopped a few paces away. "You are in wrong place," she said in accented English. Her voice was steady, though her hand still trembled slightly. He nodded, panting. "Yeah," he rasped. "I gathered." She looked at his bleeding arm. "That cat would have eaten you." "I noticed." She ignored his sarcasm, kneeling beside the lion's corpse. She pressed her hand to its chest, murmured something in her language, soft, rhythmic, like a prayer. Then she turned those dark eyes back to him. "You are hurt." "I'll live." "No," she said calmly. "You will not. Not alone." He tried to stand and failed, his knees buckling. The canyon swam around him in waves of heat. She caught his arm before he hit the ground, stronger than she looked, and half dragged him to a patch of shade. He grimaced. "You always help strangers like this?" She didn't answer. Her hands moved quick, pulling a pouch from her belt, mixing crushed herbs with water from a gourd. She poured it over his wound. The sting made him grit his teeth. "What's your name?" he asked through the pain. She hesitated. "Tala." He gave a weak grin. "Jesse Hart." She didn't respond, just tightened the bandage with a strip torn from her own garment. "You speak English well," he said after a moment. "I learned from the trader before soldiers killed him." Her tone was flat, but her eyes flickered. He had a kind voice. Jesse swallowed hard. "I'm sorry. Sorry does not bring him back." The silence stretched again. The canyon smelled of blood and sage, the wind sighing through narrow stone throats. Jesse watched the lion's body, already crawling with ants, and shivered despite the heat. Tala stood, slung her bow across her back, and looked down at him with something that wasn't quite pity. "You owe life debt now," she said. He frowned. "Life debt?" She nodded once. "You live because I kill for you. You belong to me until the spirits say debt is done." Jesse gave a strained laugh. "I don't belong to anyone, sweetheart." Her eyes flashed. "Then die here." He blinked, surprised by the coldness in her voice. For a heartbeat, she looked ready to walk away. Then she turned sharply, motioned for him to follow. "Come. Cave is near. You rest before you die on your feet." He tried to argue, but his vision blurred again. The last thing he saw before darkness swallowed him was Tala's silhouette against the setting sun, her bow glinting red like flame. He woke to firelight. Smoke curled in lazy ribbons above him, painting shadows on the cave walls. The scent of burning pine filled his lungs. His wounds burned like hell. Tala sat across the fire, grinding herbs in a stone bowl. Her expression was unreadable, her movements efficient, practiced. Outside, night pressed heavy, full of wind and wolves. Jesse tried to sit up. Pain flared through his ribs. "Quiet," she said without looking at him. "You move, you bleed more." He eased back down. "You patch me up?" She nodded. "You are a stupid man, but strong." He smirked faintly. "That a compliment?" "Not sure yet." She fed a handful of dry sage into the fire. The light flickered across her face, revealing a thin scar along her jaw. He wanted to ask how she got it, but the weight in her gaze warned him not to. After a while, he said, "You could have left me there." "Yes." "But you didn't." "No." He waited for more, but she said nothing. The silence between them was sharp enough to cut. "You live here alone?" he asked finally. "I live where I must," she said. "My people far to the south now. Soldiers burned last camp. I hunt. I wait for sign to return." Her voice cracked on the last word, and Jesse caught a glimpse of the girl beneath the warrior. Grief, quiet but raw. "I know what that's like," he said softly, "losing a place." She glanced up, studying him. "You lose tribe too?" He hesitated. "Something like that." She nodded as if she understood, though they both knew she didn't. Minutes passed. The fire popped, sending sparks toward the ceiling. He felt his eyelids growing heavy, but her voice stopped him from drifting off. "When sun comes, we move," she said. "Move where?" "To my people. They judge if you live or die." "That's mighty kind of them," he muttered. Her eyes flicked to him, a ghost of a smile on her lips. "Do not thank me yet." He looked at her across the fire, her proud posture, the way her hair caught the orange glow, the steel in her gaze, and felt something shift. Not attraction exactly, not yet. Something deeper. Recognition. Two survivors staring at what the world had made of them. "Why did you save me, Tala?" he asked finally. She met his eyes, and for a long moment she said nothing. Then, quietly, "The lion took my brother last winter. I do not let beasts win again." Jesse swallowed. The fire crackled between them, the canyon wind howling through the cave mouth. He leaned back, exhaustion dragging him under. Her words echoed in his mind until they blurred into dreams of claws, blood, and eyes dark as the desert night. When he woke hours later, she was gone. Only the fading warmth of the fire remained, and beside him, a strip of smoked meat and a water gourd. He sat up slowly, his arm throbbing. The desert outside was silver under the dawn. For the first time, he saw her tracks leading down the slope, like deliberate, heading east. He thought of leaving, of taking his chances alone. But something, pride, the echo of her voice, kept him still. The wind shifted. From far away came the faint sound of horses. Not wild ones. Men. He tightened his bandage, grabbed his revolver, and stared into the growing light. Whatever came next, he knew one thing for sure. He wasn't out of the canyon yet, and neither was she. The morning sun came cruel and clean over the desert, cutting through the haze like a blade. Jesse's heart rose stiffly from the cave floor, his arm bandaged tight, every muscle screaming rebellion. The fire was dead. Tala crouched near the mouth of the cave, sharpening her spear with calm precision. "You sleep long," she said without looking at him. He rubbed his eyes, throat raw. "Didn't know I had an appointment." She stood, slung her bow over his shoulder, and handed him a strip of dried venison. "Eat. We move." "Move where?" "To my people," she said simply. He eyed her, half amused, half wary. "Can't say I'm eager to meet them." "You have no choice. You walk or you die here. Both are good for the land." Jesse chuckled dryly. "You've got a strange way of saying thank you." "I already thanked the spirits," she said, gathering her pack. "You are not them." He sighed, shoved the meat into his mouth, and pushed his feet. His legs felt like splintered wood. But he followed her, one step after another, across a land that looked carved by the anger of God himself. The desert shimmered in heat. The ground was cracked and cruel. Vultures circled lazy spirals overhead. A dry wind carried the scent of mesquite and death. They spoke little. Tala moved with the quiet grace of a cat, always alert, scanning the horizon. Jesse stumbled more than once, cursing under his breath, his boots kicking up clouds of dust. "You were a soldier," she said suddenly, not turning. He stiffened. "What makes you say that?" "You walk like one who's carried orders too long." He said nothing. After a while, she added, "You have ghosts behind your eyes." He shot her a look. "You read people too easy." She met his gaze without flinching. "Your kind always carry guilt. You smell of it." Jesse looked away. The memory hit him like a stray bullet. Smoke, screams, the flash of a burning Apache camp years ago. He'd been 22, young, stupid, following orders. By dawn, the camp was ash and silence. Tala's voice broke the memory. "If you bring soldiers to my people, they will cut your heart out." "Don't worry," he muttered. "Ain't no soldiers left who claim me." They stopped by a patch of dry riverbed at midday. The world shimmered with heat. Jesse dropped to one knee, panting. "You sure we're going the right way?" "Yes." "Feels like we're going to hell instead." She glanced back, her mouth twitching faintly. "Hell is north. We go east." He almost laughed, and for a heartbeat, something eased between them. A fragile thread of understanding, stretched but unbroken. By late afternoon, dark clouds gathered above the mesa. Thunder rumbled across the sky. Tala raised her head, frowning. "Storm coming." "Good," Jesse said. "Maybe it'll cool us down." She shook her head. "Not good. River rises fast. We cross now, or not at all." The river cut to the land like a wound, wide and furious from the gathering storm. Its surface boiled with mud and foam. The air crackled with thunder. Tala tied a rope around her waist, testing its strength. Jesse watched the dark water, uncertain. "You sure that's safe?" "No," she said, "but waiting is worse." She looped the rope around his chest, knotting it firm. "Hold tight to me. If you let go, you drown." He smirked weakly. "That a promise or a threat?" "Both." Then she stepped into the river, pulling him with her. The current hit like a stampede. It tore at their legs, dragged at their bodies. Jesse gasped as the cold bit deep into his wounds. Tala moved first, planting her feet, shouting for him to follow. Water slammed into his chest, nearly toppling him. He grabbed the rope, teeth gritted. "You call this a good idea?" "Keep moving," she yelled, her voice nearly lost in the roar. A tree branch swept past, smashing against his hip. He stumbled, went under. The world turned black and violent. He kicked upward, choking on muddy water, eyes burning. Tala's hand seized his collar, yanking him up. "Hold!" she screamed. He coughed, gasped, felt her arm wrap around him like iron. Together, they pushed toward the far bank. Every step was a fight against death. Then the rope snapped. The sound was small, but it split the world open. Jessie saw Tala's eyes widen as the current tore them apart. She vanished behind a wall of spray. He clawed at the water, shouting her name, voice shredded by the wind. "Tala!" Nothing but thunder answered. He felt the pull drag him under again, spinning him through branches and debris. He hit rock, pain blooming behind his eyes. The river roared in his ears, filling his lungs with mud and ice. Then something grabbed him, arms strong and desperate. He broke the surface, coughing and gasping, blinking through the rain. Tala was there, hauling him to shore. Her braid was torn loose, her face streaked with mud. She dragged him up the bank, collapsing beside him, both shaking with cold and exhaustion. For a long moment, they just lay there, staring at the bruised sky. "You save me again," he said finally, his voice hoarse. She turned her head, breath ragged. "You owe me twice now." He laughed weakly, the sound dissolving into a cough. "You keep count." "Yes." Her eyes softened slightly. Spirits do too. Rain fell harder, drumming on the earth. She stood, pulling him to his feet. "We may camp there." They found shelter beneath a leaning rock ledge, dry enough for a small fire. Tala knelt beside him, her hands shaking slightly as she tried to light the tinder. Jessie watched her, realizing how small she looked against the storm. Young, fierce, but not unbreakable. When the fire caught, he said quietly, "You risked your life for me back there." She didn't meet his eyes. "My brother once drowned in this river. I thought maybe spirits wanted me to change what happened before." Jessie looked at her, seeing the glint of pain she tried to hide. "You ever stop fighting them? The spirits, I mean." Her mouth curved in a sad smile. "They never stop first." The fire crackled between them, throwing gold light over their faces. He wanted to reach out, to touch her hand, but something held him back, the line between gratitude and something deeper, something neither of them was ready to name. The rain had passed by dawn, leaving the desert washed clean and trembling with new color. Mist clung to the stones. Jessie woke to the smell of smoke and the sound of Tala humming, a low, mournful tune that echoed through the hollow. He sat up, wincing. "That song, what's it mean?" She looked up from the fire. "It means the land still listens." He nodded, quiet. "Wish it listened to me sometimes." "You do not speak right language." "Maybe you could teach me," he said. She studied him for a moment. "Maybe." They ate in silence. The warmth between them felt different now. Not just survival, but understanding. The canyon no longer seemed so wide. By midday, they reached higher ground where the wind carried the faint smell of smoke. Tala stopped, crouched low. "Horses," she whispered. Jessie tensed. "Yours." She shook her head. "Scouts. My people." He exhaled, uncertain whether to be relieved or afraid. She turned to him, eyes sharp. "You must not speak when they come. Do not reach for your gun. If they think you threat, they kill you." "That's comforting," he said dryly. "You follow what I say, or I leave you for the buzzards." "Fine," he muttered. "You lead." The hoofbeats grew louder, echoing across the canyon. Tala stood tall, bow at her side. Jessie stayed half a step behind, his pulse hammering. From a ridge came 3 riders, faces painted, eyes like steel. They reined their horses sharply when they saw Jessie. One raised a spear. Tala lifted her hand. "He is with me," she called in Apache. They dismounted, circling. The oldest, with streaks of gray in his hair, stepped forward. He and Tala exchanged rapid words Jesse couldn't follow. He caught only her tone, urgent, pleading. Then the man's gaze shifted to Jesse, cold as flint. He said something short. Tala turned, her expression tight. "What's he saying?" Jesse asked quietly. She hesitated. "He says you do not belong here. You will bring death." "Can't argue with that," he muttered. She shot him a warning glance, then faced the elder again. The exchange grew heated. Jesse saw her fist clench. Finally, the man spat on the ground and signaled the others. "They will take us," she said. "Take us where?" "To my father." The words hung heavy. They rode in silence for hours, the landscape shifting from open plains to red bluffs and scattered oaks. Jesse's thoughts twisted. He wondered if her father would even listen, or if he'd meet his end at the tip of a spear. Tala stayed silent, her expression unreadable. But when their eyes met, he saw something there, worry, guilt, and a hint of defiance. As dusk fell, the riders led them toward a valley filled with smoke and firelight. Shapes moved between the tents. Warriors, children, women tending fires. Dogs barked. Drums thudded low and steady, like a heartbeat. Jesse's breath caught. He was in the heart of the Apache. Tala dismounted first. "Do not fear," she said softly. "They will listen before they kill." "Comforting as always," he muttered, climbing down. They were surrounded instantly. Men with bows, faces painted for war. Jesse's hand twitched toward his gun, then froze when he saw Tala's look. A tall man stepped forward from the largest tent, broad-shouldered, eyes hard as obsidian. The air around him seemed to shift. Tala bowed her head. "Father," she said. Jesse's stomach dropped. The man's gaze slid to him, slow and deliberate. "You brought the enemy into our fire," he said in English thick with accent. Tala straightened. "He saved me from a lion." "He saved himself," her father replied. "You dishonor your blood by bringing him here." She took a step closer. "He owes life debt. Spirits bound him to me." Her father's eyes narrowed. "Then his death will repay it." The warriors moved. Hands grabbed Jesse, wrenching his arms behind him, shoving him to his knees. He fought the urge to resist. Tala stepped forward, shouting in Apache, voice shaking with fury. Her father silenced her with a raised hand. Jesse looked up, dirt on his face, blood crusting his temple. Their eyes met, hers blazing, his calm despite the rope biting his wrists. "Guess I'm your debt to pay," he said quietly. Tala's lip trembled. "I will find a way." "Don't," he said. "You've done enough." Her father's voice thundered over them. "At dawn the white man dies." And as the sun fell behind the mountains, Jesse realized he was staring into a fire that might burn them both before it was done. The sun was dropping fast, bleeding out behind the ridges like a wounded beast. Luke rode ahead, jaw tight, his silhouette cut sharp against the dying light. Tayan followed close, her dark hair loose in the wind, a bough slung across her back, eyes flicking over every shadow like she could smell danger before it showed itself. They had been following the trail all afternoon, the one that led to men who'd burned her village and shot his horse. The ground was scattered with hoof prints, broken branches, and a drag mark that hadn't faded yet. Whoever they were chasing had taken someone with them. A prisoner, maybe. Luke's voice came rough, low. "They're close." Tayan's reply was a whisper, carried by the wind. "I know." They dismounted near a creek bend, both moving quiet as ghosts. Smoke curled faintly from somewhere ahead. Luke crouched, touched the dirt, felt the warmth still clinging to it. "Campfire," he muttered. "Can't be more than an hour old." Tayan's gaze hardened. "We end it tonight." Luke looked at her, really looked, the wildness in her eyes, the pain, the quiet storm that had driven her, since he'd found her bleeding by that ridge days ago. "You sure you want to see that?" he asked. She met his stare. "I have to." That ended the talk. They moved through the brush like hunters born for it, silent, patient. The air smelled of pine sap and ash. The wind signed to the canyon like a warning. Then Luke froze, motioning her down. Through the scrub ahead, a faint orange glow flickered. Men's voices drifted, drunken laughter, the clink of bottles, a curse in Spanish. Tayan tense, hand on her knife. Luke's eyes tracked the camp. For men, maybe 5, rifles stacked near a tree. One of them had a red bandana tied around his arm. Luke's breath caught. He remembered that mark. Those men had raided settlements from Santa Fe to the border, killing for sport. He drew his revolver slow. Checked the cylinder. "Stay low," he whispered. But Tayan wasn't listening. Her pulse thundered in her ears. One of the men had something in his hand. A necklace made of turquoise and bone. Her mother's necklace. Tayan's fingers clenched so tight the knuckles whitened. Luke grabbed her wrist before she could lunge. "Not yet," he hissed. "We do this smart." Her breath came fast, angry, but she nodded. They circled, closing in from the shadows. One of the outlaws wandered off to relieve himself, staggering near the trees. Luke waited until the man was alone, then stepped out behind him, gun pressed to his back. "Easy," he growled. The man stiffened. Too late. The hammer clicked, and the shot cracked like thunder. He fell face first, dead before he hit the dirt. The others jerked up, shouting, grabbing for their rifles. But Tayan was already moving, a blur in the dark. An arrow hissed through firelight, struck one man clean through the throat. He dropped, gasping. Luke fired again, hitting another in the shoulder. The camp exploded in gunfire and chaos. Tayan rolled behind a log as bullets spat splinters. Luke ducked low, reloaded, then charged forward. Reckless, precise, brutal. He slammed into one outlaw, knocked the rifle aside, and broke his nose with the butt of his gun. The man went down screaming. Another tried to run for the horses. Tayan's knife found his back before he took 3 steps. She yanked it free, breathing hard, face streaked with dirt and tears. Then silence. Only the crackle of the fire and the ragged sound of their breaths. Luke scanned the bodies, gun still ready. That all of them? Tayan didn't answer. She stood over the man with the red bandana, the one who'd led the attack. He was on his knees, blood soaking his shirt. She raised her knife. Luke stepped closer, voice low. "Tayan." She hesitated. The man looked up, sneering through the blood on his lips. "Ain't worth nothing, girl," he spat. "Your people's dead. You're just another stray." The knife trembled in her hand. Luke said softly, "He's wrong." Tayan's breath hitched. For a long second. The night held still. Then she drew a deep, shaking breath and drove the blade home. The outlaw fell, silent. The fire hissed, sparks drifting into the dark. Luke didn't speak. He just stood there beside her as the flames dimmed, the two of them shadows among the dead. When it was done, she dropped the knife and sank to her knees, tears cutting to the grime on her cheeks. Luke crouched beside her, unsure whether to touch her shoulder or leave her be. "I thought it would stop the pain," she whispered. "It doesn't." Luke's jaw tightened. "It never does." He stayed with her till the fire burned out, till the sky turned cold and the stars came hard and bright above the ridge. When she finally looked up at him, there was something different in her eyes, something fierce, but not lost anymore. "We go back tomorrow," she said. He nodded. "Yeah." The night wind shifted. Somewhere far off, a wolf howled. And for the first time since that mountain lion, Luke felt something like peace, fragile, fleeting, but real. By morning, the world smelled of rain and smoke. They buried the dead where they fell, not out of mercy, but because leaving them to rot would only bring scavengers. When it was done, they saddled up the one good horse that remained. Tayan rode behind Luke, her arms wrapped around him, her face pressed against his back as they crossed the valley. The silence between them wasn't heavy anymore. It was quiet like an understanding. The sky ahead was wide and pale, streaked with rose-colored light. The kind of dawn that made the land look endless, like all sins could be forgotten if you just kept riding west long enough. Luke looked over his shoulder. "You got somewhere you want to go?" Tayan didn't answer right away. "There's a river north of here," she said finally. "My people used to camp there in spring. If anyone survived, they might have gone back." Luke nodded. "Then we'll find them." She tilted her head, studying him. "Why do you help me, cowboy? You owe me nothing." He thought for a long while before answering. "Maybe I ain't helping you," he said. "Maybe I'm helping myself." She smiled faintly, not pressing further. Hours later, they reached a ridge overlooking the river valley. Below, smoke curled from small fires, not the wild blaze of raiders, but thin, steady streams from campfires. Tayan's breath caught. "My people," she whispered. Luke grinned, relief washing through him. Looks like luck's finally turned. They started down slow, careful not to spook whoever was below. But as they neared the tree-line, the sound of horses thundered behind them. Luke twisted in the saddle. 3 riders were coming fast, rifles raised. "Get down," he barked. They dove off the horse just as bullets tore through the air. Tayan hit the dirt, rolled. "Grab her bow." Luke drew his Colt, fired twice. 1 rider dropped. The other 2 circled wide, moving like wolves. "They must have followed the smoke," Luke muttered. "Bandits or bounty hunters." Tayan loosed an arrow, missed by inches. The riders split. 1 charged her flank, firing wild. Luke tackled her aside, returning fire. His last bullet found the man's chest. The rider toppled, horse screaming. The 3rd man fired back. The shot grazed Luke's arm, tearing blood. He gritted his teeth, dropped to 1 knee, gun empty. Tayan drew another arrow, took aim. The wind shifted, and she fired. The shaft flew true. The last rider fell. Silence. Luke pressed a hand to his wound, hissing through his teeth. Tayan crawled to him, ripping cloth from her sleeve to bind it. "You'll live," she said, voice trembling. He managed a crooked smile. "You sound awful sure." "Because I say so." He chuckled, winced. "Bossy little thing." She met his gaze, fierce and steady. "You're mine now," she said quietly, not a threat, not a claim, but a promise born from something deeper. Luke held her eyes, the pain fading for a moment. "Guess I am." They rode on to the river, slower this time. The camp below stirred as they approached. People emerged, men, women, children, faces wary but hopeful. Tayan called out in Apache, her voice breaking with joy when one woman ran forward, her aunt alive, tears streaming down her cheeks. Luke hung back, watching the reunion from his saddle. For the first time in years, he saw something pure, the kind of home he'd forgotten existed. Tayan turned, motioned him closer. "Come," she said. "You're a part of this." He hesitated. "I don't belong." She smiled. "You do now." He dismounted, slow, unsure, but when her small hand found his, something in him settled. By nightfall, they sat beside the river, firelight flickering between them. She wore her mother's turquoise necklace again, the color catching the flame. Luke's arm was bound, his gun resting beside him, for once untouched. Tayan said softly, "You saved me once, but it was you who needed saving." He looked into the fire, then at her. "Reckon you're right." The wind whispered through the reeds. The stars came out one by one. And somewhere in the quiet, where grief had once lived, something new began to take root, fragile, stubborn, and alive.